What's going on, everyone? Two Wheel Pursuit back again. I've seen a ton of people talking about a new bike that is somewhat similar to the CBR500, and that is what we are going to be talking about today. That bike, of course, is the Kawasaki Ninja 300. So, disclaimer, I'm not actually going to ride the Ninja 300 in this video. I'm just going to kind of talk about it and give my thoughts on it. I have gotten a chance to go over it, look at it, actually hear it start up, sit on it. I have not gotten a chance to ride it, but this is kind of going to be a spec breakdown, my opinion on the specs comparing that bike, the Ninja 300, to the CBR500. So, starting off, I want to say that I've never really been that big of a fan of Kawasaki sport bikes because of the reason they all look the same. I mean, not literally, but if you look at them, like if you line up the Ninja 300, Ninja 400, Ninja 650, and Ninja 1000, or ZX10, or ZX6R, all of them actually look very similar. And you know, that's okay. It's just my personal opinion. I'm not a big fan of it. So, that being said, my actual thoughts on the bike compared to this bike, if I was looking, say if I was back in a position where I'm buying a brand new bike, and I have to decide between the Ninja 300 and the CBR500, which one would I choose and why would I choose it? I think I would still go with the 500, but it's pretty much 50-50. I'll explain to you my reasoning. Pretty much a few of the things that I looked at, the Ninja 3 or Ninja 400 versus the CBR 500. The Ninja 400 comes in at 399 cc's, I believe, and the Honda CBR 500 comes in at 470 cc's. It's only about a 70 cc difference, and really that's not a whole lot, but it doesn't stop there. There's a lot of other differences that you need to consider. First of all, the CBR 500 redlines at 8,500 RPM, which is a pretty low redline for a sport bike. I don't think I know any Kawasaki sport bikes that redline that low, especially the Ninja 300 and now the Ninja 400. They're all up there around 11,000, I believe. So, not nearly. The CBR is not nearly as high revving as those bikes, but don't look at that as necessarily a bad thing. Just because they're both going to have about the same power, because the speed at which they reach the red line is about the same on both of the bikes, from what I've heard. Which means even though the torque, the peak torque kicks in at 9,000 RPMs on the Ninja 400 versus on the CBR it kicks in at, I believe it was 7,000 RPMs. So yeah, there's a bit of a difference there, but they also have a much different red line. You're going to reach that red line in about the same time, and the peak torque in about the same time. So all in all, as far as the torque between the two bikes, I'm sure the Ninja 400 has plenty of power for the highway, just the same way the CBR 500 does. Holy shit, a bee just hit my face. My visor. I'm glad I'm wearing a full face helmet. So another thing to consider is how much horsepower are both of these bikes making. The CBR 500 is making about 47 horsepower at 8,500 RPMs. Ninja 400 is making about 43 horsepower at whatever revs, whatever the red line is. I think it's about 12,000 maybe. So really, looking at the bikes for a while, they seemed pretty neck and neck. The only thing that I personally was not a big fan of the both of them was the styling. I much prefer the styling of the CBR over the Ninja 400. That's just my opinion, though. You're always going to have some people that like the style of your bike and some people who dislike the style of your bike. And that goes for literally all bikes. So the most important thing is that you like the style of your bike. You want to be able to look at your bike every time and say, I really like how that bike looks. Don't really care about what anyone else thinks about how your bike looks, because everyone has different opinions. But that's my personal opinion on the styling. Horsepower and torque, they're about the same, even though the CBR redlines at much lower RPMs. They're about the same. Oh shit, that's a lot of gravel right there. Oh. I've never been on this road before, so I'm trying to be a little bit careful. So another thing that I found kind of interesting was the tack on the Ninja 400 is actually a more analog style tachometer, and that has the digital speedometer. I really like that style. It actually reminded me a little bit of the Kawasaki Ninja H2, which I'm sure it won't remind everyone of that, but personally I thought that was what it looked like a little bit. Which, you know, that's cool. I think they're doing a cool job on the styling. I think when you're sitting on the bike, it feels good, very low to the ground. Very nice from that aspect. I'm sure however short you are, if you're a shorter rider like myself, you should be able to handle that bike no problem, especially even if you can't flat-foot it, because that's the next part that I'm going to get to, and this is the real big deal, and the reason the Ninja 400 might actually be better than the CBR500, and that is the weight. The wet weight of the CBR500 comes in at around 420 pounds, which is pretty heavy for the kind of bike this is. The weight of the Ninja 400, I can't believe I'm saying this, the wet weight comes in at around 370 pounds, which is insane. You're talking about you getting the same amount of power, essentially, that the CBR500 has, and you took 50 pounds off the stock bike? What? Now, in general, I think that's going to be a very good thing. I think it might actually make the Ninja 300 feel more powerful than the CBR500, because the specs are almost exactly, not exactly the same, but they're very similar in the sense that both of them are coming in very similar horsepower, very similar torque, and then you look at the weight and you realize Kawasaki did something right, because they took off a ton of weight, almost 50 pounds from the Kawasaki. So what that would mean is, obviously, you have less weight, the bike's going to be more flickable, more maneuverable, easier to handle for shorter riders. Maybe not as good on the highway, though, because if you're on the highway, you're out riding, if it's a windy day, you're going to get blown around quite a bit. Even me on 420 pounds worth of bike, I get blown around quite a bit. So that's something you need to consider. But all in all, the fact that the bike weighs 50 pounds less is just amazing. The bike should just handle amazingly with 50 pounds less, and you still have the torque and the horsepower of the CBR500, or at least pretty close. I'm going to have to say, I think the Ninja 400 might have beat Honda in this regard. You also have to consider that's 370 pounds wet weight stock. So of course you take off that exhaust, you replace it with something new, a lot lighter carbon fiber. You take off some of the parts you don't need. If you want to race the bike, do a track day, you're all set. You can take off all the extra weight. I bet you could get the bike down to about 350 pounds, 355, if the wet weight is actually what they say it is at 370. As far as how the bike sounds, how the bike feels, it's kind of hard for me to say how the bike feels. I think the bike sounds pretty good. You know, throw an aftermarket Yoshimura exhaust on there, the bike's going to sound pretty good. However, it's all personal preference once again. Something to remember is, you know, a lot of people like these parallel twins, the parallel twin engines. You know, you can go pick one of these up for not too much money, and they're pretty fun just to go around. Great commuting bikes. And then if you want, they're still a little bit sporty, so if you want to go out in the twisty corners, you know, leaning way over, whatever, you can do that as well. They're great bikes all around. So I guess I would say my conclusion of the two bikes, because the question people have been asking me is, would I get the CBR500 or the Ninja 300? And obviously I can't really answer that because I haven't ridden the Ninja 300. I'm going to try to get a test ride, but really a lot of them are sold out. It's a very popular bike right now. Definitely completely overtook the CBR500 in the beginner market. But here's the advice that I'm going to give to the people who are looking at getting either a CBR500 or a Ninja 400. They are both excellent bikes to start on. Both of these bikes are going to give you plenty of power to grow into. Both of them are going to give you plenty right off the bat. If you look at the top speed of both the bikes, they're both going to top out around 110, 115 miles per hour. So they're almost tied. They're almost the exact same in almost every aspect. I think if you're looking at getting either a Ninja 400 or a CBR 500, you really can go either way and you're gonna have a good time. Both of those bikes, well, this is very awkward. Okay. Both of those bikes are going to give you a really good time. You're going to have a blast riding around on whatever one you get. Obviously, in my opinion, I'm kind of biased towards the 500 because I love this bike. But I'm sure if I got the 400, I would love that bike too. The thing is, like, Kawasaki has come up with something with a bit more power than the 300, pretty much matching the 500, and it still kept the weight down, way down, almost 50 pounds less than the CBR 500. So it depends if you want something more light, more nimble, or something that's going to feel a bit more planted. In my opinion, the CBR 500 is going to give you better experience for when you want to upgrade, you know, maybe get a 600 or a 1000 or a cruiser, whatever. Because those bikes are going to be heavier. And a Ninja 400, you might not exactly get the same feeling because it's so lightweight. That's something to consider. So in my personal opinion, taking into account everything I know about the two bikes, the horsepower, the torque, the sound, the weight, the style, how they both look, the history of the manufacturers, in my honest opinion, I would take the CBR 500 over the Ninja 400. And that's just my opinion. You know, it's just because of stuff I like about the bike that I already know, like the little things, but how it handles and whatnot. I think that the Ninja 400 is a great bike though. If I was looking at getting a new one, Ninja 400 a little bit cheaper, I might get the Ninja 400. If I didn't have the money quite for the 500, or I wanted to save some money, then I would get the 400, because I think that, you know, for what you're getting for the money, it's a great deal. Guys, whatever bike you decide to get, both of the bikes are great. I would personally go with 500, but that's just me. 400 is also a great bike. Very neck and neck. Well guys, I'm gonna try to get home before this thunderstorm hits. I am going to do my best to get a test ride on the Ninja 300 to give you guys my opinion on it. Obviously it might take a little while because they're pretty much sold out where I live, but if I can find one to ride, I will absolutely ride it. As always, thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys in the next video. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section down below. And I will see you guys very soon. Until then, you guys ride safe.